Qui-Gon Jinn found himself in an odd situation. He thought Yoda was wrong. In fact, he thought the entire Jedi Order was wrong. Jinn, by this point, had been a Jedi Master for years and was one of the rare souls to have rejected an invitation to join and take a seat on the Jedi Council. And as he trained Obi-Wan Kenobi in the ways of the Force, Jinn discovered that he wasn't starting to agree with the other members of the Order, as he had heard experience would cause him to do. Instead, Jinn only felt his own opinions became more and more certain, and this led him into direct conflict with the head of his Order, Grand Master Yoda. What happened to Jinn when he finally expressed his innermost thoughts? Join us as we answer this question and more on today's Underrated Moment. After rescuing a princess of a distant, primitive world, Qui-Gon came back to the Jedi Temple. As he stood on a balcony overlooking the setting of their single sun, known as Coruscant Prime, the familiar hallowed sound of Grandmaster Yoda's walking stick started to echo in the background. The small, emerald-eyed Force user hated to see any Jedi troubled in any way, but he was especially worried about Qui-Gon. The thoughts that perplexed the relatively young master were the same that often tempted Jedi to the dark side. So Yoda took the quiet evening and the setting sun as an invitation to discuss Qui-Gon's concerns. "Great turmoil I sense in you, and knew it is not," Yoda said as he leaned his body weight against the knob of his cane, allowing his feet to shuffle forward a few inches at a time. Realizing that he couldn't avoid the conversation, Qui-Gon decided to embrace it. Of course, he loved to talk about the mysteries of the Force and the path to serve it, but even he grew tired of defending his opinions to the other Jedi. "If I am to be honest," Qui-Gon began, "there are concerns that I have had for some time now." As he listened to Jinn speak, Yoda wrongly presumed that Qui-Gon was troubled by the words of a woman he had recently rescued. She was known as the Priestess of Wood, and her realm was threatened by a competing tribe, a clan that worshipped metal in the very same way that her tribe revered trees. At one point in the rescue attempt, Qui-Gon had a choice. He could either ignite his lightsaber and cut down every member of the Metal Clan, or he could simply run away with the priestess under his arm. In that way, he could both save her and prevent any more loss of life. After all, the Metal Clan soldiers would have never had their lives threatened if it weren't for Qui-Gon's intervention, and the Jedi intended to disrupt the world as little as possible. In their flight, the priestess coldly turned to Qui-Gon and declared, "I had heard the Jedi were great warriors, but running at the first sign of a fight, the legends never hinted at your cowardice." Yoda was aware of the insult, and he wanted to make sure that the young Jedi wasn't worried about the offense. "A coward you are not, Qui-Gon Jinn. Her planet you had to leave," Yoda said, but Qui-Gon quickly corrected his master. "Being called a coward isn't what bothered me, Master Yoda. It was being called a great warrior." Qui-Gon Jinn corrected him, and the stern look that Yoda cast in his direction was an uncharacteristic expression for the Jedi Grandmaster. Jinn guessed that Yoda disapproved of his opinion, but Qui-Gon continued to talk. "Even here on Coruscant, the home of the Jedi Council, there is little understanding of our purpose." Qui-Gon spread his arms out wide and gestured to the vast expanse of skyscrapers and sublayers of Coruscant that hummed with the millions of lives the Jedi swore to serve. "We are seen as soldiers, servants of politicians, with little mention of the Force itself." Qui-Gon concluded as he finally breathed his opinion into life. But instead of listening to his apprentice and considering the truth behind the words, Yoda simply seemed to jump to a position he was all too familiar with, defending the Jedi Order and the Republic which it served. "Mysterious the Force remains to many, and misunderstood those who use the Force often are," Yoda said. But Qui-Gon quickly saw through the words of the Grand Master. If what Yoda said was true, the reason the Jedi were viewed as warriors around the galaxy wasn't their own fault, but because the common men and women of the Republic simply mistook them for such. But that was a poor excuse, as far as Qui-Gon could estimate. And yet our actions are a reflection of our purpose. Perhaps the Jedi Council residing here in the capital is part of the problem. We are used as a weapon of the Republic, and thus we are seen as such, perhaps even by ourselves. Qui-Gon Jinn laid out point after point in order to try and win his superior over to his way of thinking. It was true for millennia, ever since the formation of the Republic in 25,000 BBY and the migration of Jedi from Tython and onto the world of Ossus, the Jedi had become a powerful weapon for the Republic to wield. During the Great Wars of Exar Kun and the Frida Nod Uprising, the Jedi Masters and their students acting as an army that could extend their influence across the entire galaxy. Even in the aftermath of the Battle of Ruusan in 1000 BBY, when the Jedi supposedly reduced their role as warriors, they still continued to battle smaller duels and battle for the inner core to the western reaches of the Outer Rim. And every young boy and girl, when they heard of the Jedi, thought of the awe-inspiring knights that wielded colorful swords and vanquished dark tyrants and Sith. Even now, Padawans, when accepted into the Order's training program, dream of becoming knights instead of peaceful monks who purely help their fellow man. Wasn't all of this true? Qui-Gon couldn't believe that the notion of Jedi as powerful warriors was simply a misunderstanding. The Jedi helped perpetuate this myth, but Yoda, once again, refused to recognize Jinn's point, but instead of tackling it head-on, Yoda simply spoke in riddles and indirectly referenced what others might feel. On this point, the Council would not agree, Yoda stated, without further elaboration. Feeling as though he had been silenced and there was no other place to take the conversation, Qui-Gon simply accepted that the other Jedi, whether due to their age or their blindness, could never be changed. Of course, Qui-Gon said, defeated, but be it the Council or myself, I feel there is a loss of vision. With Qui-Gon's final words, he seemed to invite Yoda to join him in a discussion on the principles of the Jedi, but the emerald-skinned master simply ordered his subordinate to meditate on the issue. When questions we have, a deeper understanding from the Force we must seek, Yoda said. The pair sat in silence on the balcony as they watched the final rays of Coruscant Prime fall beneath the horizon, and the whirring lights of the planet's night suddenly came to life. A short time later, Qui-Gon would actually meditate in a dark side nexus and allow the power of the dark to nearly consume him. And much to Yoda's surprise, instead of feeling reinvigorated by the Jedi Order's purpose, Qui-Gon only felt more convinced of his own beliefs. That violence and battle undo the very goal that the Jedi serve, which is bringing peace to the galaxy.